Hey.
Welcome back to the Box Score Watching channel. For today's video, we're continuing our deep dive into some of the upcoming NBA draft prospects, with the draft now just 9 days away. We're taking a look at someone who has been very volatile when it comes to the scouting reports that I have seen throughout the past couple of months, and that player is Alan Graves out of Santa Clara University. Now, I think the main reason why he is such a volatile player when it comes to draft Twitter, NBA scouts, all of those good things, there are two very large subsections of the NBA draft and people who follow it and people who make big boards and all that good stuff. There is obviously the very analytically driven side of the draft world, and then there is the, eye test, I'm going to watch a tape side of the draft world. And again, I think the reason why Alan Graves remains such a volatile player in this draft class is that analytically, his numbers are off the charts. If you look at stuff like BPM and the age adjusted BPM, he was top of the class. You look at his 3-point percentage, it was really good, above 40%. The BPM offensively and defensively was really good. He was 100th percentile in steal percentage, 86th percentile in block percentage, 99th percentile in offensive rebound percentage. Now, you could also make the argument against all of these numbers because, numbers don't always tell the whole story. The fact that he only played 22 minutes a game is not great. So basically, what that says is yes, he is a very productive player, but he was doing it in short stints. And you could make the what if case. What if he played more minutes? Because he didn't even start for his Santa Clara team. He came off the bench. Now, in actually watching the games, I would feel comfortable enough saying that he was their best player, at least in the games that I watched. But again, for whatever reason, his coaches viewed him more as a sixth man. And so again, you can make the argument like, if he played more minutes, would his numbers look as good? Um, and all that sort of nonsense, but it's all what if, so I don't want to go too deep into that. So anyway, again, you have that one half of the draft world that's saying he is like a for sure lottery pick. He's one of the most slept on players in this entire draft, all because of the advanced numbers. But then you also have the other side of the draft world who relies more on watching the games, watching the tape with their own eyes, who see Alan Graves and say that he is slow, he's unathletic, he has no self creation, and there's no reason for him to be drafted anywhere in the top 20, or they think he's like a late first, early second kind of guy. Now, not to spoil my own ending to the video, but and also not to cop out, but I have Alan Graves somewhere in the middle. I have him right outside, I guess technically in the lottery at 14, sandwiched in between some Michigan guys with Yaxel one spot ahead of him and Morez Johnson one spot behind him. Now, the reason I put him here, I think him and Morez Johnson kind of have similar cases for the kind of player that they are projecting to be in the NBA. I think both are projected to be really good role players who have a chance to be that like starter level elite role player kind of guy. Now, in Morez Johnson's case, I think he gets that point through his defense, his hustle, his ability to shoot the ball if that swing skill is able to work out for him. Overall, his route to becoming an elite role player in the NBA is through his defensive abilities, whereas Alan Graves, I think he's not a slouch defensively, but I think his route to becoming that elite role player in the NBA is more offensively based. And I'll bring some tape out in a second to show what I mean by that, but to start, I'll just say that the name that consistently kept coming to me as I was watching Alan Graves play basketball was Al Horford, which, it's not a perfect comparison because Al Horford is just bigger than Alan Graves is. Al Horford was big enough to play the center, although he started his career as a four, and then once the NBA went smaller, he eventually became a five. Alan Graves, I don't think he's going to be playing the five that much in the NBA, even though that was a position he played at college for his freshman season. I think gonna be more suitable as like a 3-4, just, wing forward in general. But, me being a Celtics fan, I watched a good amount, or I have watched a good amount of Al Horford in recent years, and in watching Allen Graves, it was just a very similar play style. Offensively, again, as I mentioned earlier, Allen Graves is not someone who's going to put the ball on the floor every time he gets it and get to the rim. He is much more role player based in that he just helps facilitate good shots for his guards. Santa Clara used him a lot at the top of the key as a sort of playmaking hub, running a lot of handoffs with his guards. If you get him the ball there, he's very good at hitting the backdoor cutters for layups and dunks and all those easy shots. He was a good screen setter, and one thing that really stood out to me was his ability to play out of the short roll. He was very, very good in this aspect of his game. Not only did he have really good hands, almost every ball that was thrown at him, he was able to corral in, which is a skill that I don't think it gets mentioned enough amongst bigs when they're being scouted for the NBA. But Allen Graves, tremendous hands, and in addition to that, he was really good at passing out of the short roll, whether it was kicks to the strong side, reverse kicks to the weak side, or dump offs to the low man. He showed a really good ability to just be fluid in those reps. And another very niche small thing that I noticed is that when he did pass out of the short roll or just, kickouts in general, every single pass was right on the money, right into the shooting pocket, which now part of the reason why I like the Al Horford comp for Allen Graves is that, yes, he is a very ancillary piece offensively to his future team, or, he was to his Santa Clara team. But he did show a few plays here and there that he does have some ability to create shots for himself, especially at the post, which if you know Al Horford, that was kind of a similar thing to him. Like he would very rarely put the ball on the floor and try to go get, to the rim or get his own jump shot. But if you give him a few post ups here and there, he's able to go to work. And it's not like he had like a deep bag or anything, but he would just muscle his way to the paint, throw up a little hook shot, get 2 points, and then go back on defense. And it's very similar to what I saw from Alan Graves. Uh, Again, his bag was pretty limited, but he did have a few like nice baseline spins, a few drop steps, and just easy hook shots in the paint that he was able to score. Again, looking back at his stats, he was at a 63% efficiency around the rim, which isn't great, but it's right around average. And then to wrap up, Allen Graves on the offensive side of the ball, a very key factor for him and why I do believe in him and his ability to be a very good role player at the NBA level is that he can shoot the ball. He's not the greatest spot up guy, but he did shoot 40% from three on the season. He has a pretty fluid shot. I'm not really too worried about that aspect of his game. The thing that I found most intriguing with Graves, and again, just this goes back to that whole volatility argument about whether Graves is actually a good prospect or not, is the defense and the hustle stuff. Because a lot of people were trying to make red flags out of the fact that Alan Graves had a not that good combine. He didn't measure that well. He's not that athletically gifted, and everyone was making a big ruckus about it. But when you actually just put him on a basketball court and you watch him play defense and move and help and cover his man and all that good stuff, like he moves perfectly fine on a basketball court. I'm really not too worried about it. Like, were there plays where he was exposed for not being the most athletic guy or not being able to move his feet out on the perimeter? Yes, absolutely. It is definitely like a concern, and it prevents me from saying that he's going to be an elite defensive guy. But I think that just speaks more to the fact that I think he's going to really excel as a low man, help side, rim protector, guarding the wings and forwards who camp corners. And I think he'll be perfectly fine in that aspect, just helping off those guys in the corner, weak side rim protection, all that good stuff, like tagging the roll man. But when you put Alan Graves in a position to, guard on the perimeter, if he has to like switch in a pick and roll onto a smaller guard, then yeah, that's an area where he's going to get a little bit exposed at the NBA level because even at the college level, he had some trouble staying in front of those kinds of players. He would let them get to the rim. He would foul a lot, which is a red flag that does concern me a little bit, but we'll talk about that later. But again, the people who harp on this stuff and say that he is unathletic just because he can't guard on the perimeter, I think miss the overall point that again, I think Allen Graves moves pretty well on a basketball court, and there's plenty of tape to show that too. The main defensive scheme for Santa Clara this past season was anytime there was a ball screen, it would be a hard hedge by the big, someone would come tag the roll guy, and then, they would recover back to their guys and basically dare teams to make that skip pass. And Allen Graves spent a lot of time guarding opposing bigs, so oftentimes he was that guy making the hard hedge in the pick and roll, and there were plenty of times where he would make that hard hedge, hustle back to his man, and either like steal the entry pass or just get back in time to deny the entry pass. And I'm just sitting here confused how people can watch that and then say that he doesn't move well on an NBA court because that's a very difficult thing to do that he was doing a whole lot, and again, leads to the fact that he was 100 percentile in steal percentage at 4.9%. And as I mentioned earlier, he's not exactly like a, top of the line shot blocker, but he does have some good verticality to him that he is a really good help side rim protector. He's not afraid to, peel off his man and make a last second, help, to someone that gets beat, and again, he's not gonna be an elite shot blocker, but he was, 86th percentile with a 5.0 block percentage, like, he does get block shots. And again, you could point to his size and say that he's not going to be an elite rim protector, but it's good enough to the point that he is above average in that area, which again just adds to the fact that I think he's gonna be perfectly fine on the defensive side of the ball, assuming that teams put him in the right position to succeed. And then the last thing I'll mention real quick is that he was a really good rebounder of the basketball, which in today's NBA is all the craze, getting extra possessions. He was really good at crashing the offensive glass, and he was a pretty strong rebounder in general. Again, that kind of goes back to the good hands I mentioned earlier, and when he's in the short roll, that same thing can be applied to rebounding as he's able to rise up with his verticality, apex the ball, come down with it strong. And again, it's a boring skill, but it's a skill that I think needs to be mentioned because, guys like Hannah Steinbach, who I mentioned earlier, are getting a lottery level grade because of how great of a rebounder they are. Same thing for like Morez Johnson. Even though his rebounding numbers weren't that good, he's a pretty strong rebounder too. But I think Allen Graves is like I don't wanna say just as good, but he's at lowest like a tier below the top rebounders in this draft class, so again, just another skill that's in his favor. So overall, I personally feel pretty good about Allen Graves. I think he is at the very least, like an NBA player, will he be a super impactful NBA player 5 to 10 years from now? I don't know, but I would not at all be surprised if he is someone who's able to stick around in the league, because despite some athletic limitations, he's just a really good basketball player, and he always just seemed to be in the right spot on the basketball court at all times. And you know, it's a trend that's starting to form, I feel like, in the scouting world. I think people are finally leaning more into the players who have the higher basketball IQs rather than the guys who are simply just, athletic freaks that people who want to mold into good basketball players. They're instead just, living with the athletic limitations and drafting the good basketball players. And I think that's the case with Allen Graves, is that he's someone that's just a good basketball player, and he has size, he has, some on-ball talent, he has off-ball talent, and again, I think he just has a chance to be one of the elite role players in the NBA. So if you're a team that is looking for that in the late lottery, mid to late first round, I think Allen Graves would be a great selection for them. That's all I got for this one. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of those good things, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.